doesn't high five somebody? All right. It's good to be here today. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. What's going on?
Pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin. I came to win, battle me, that's a sin. I won't ever slack up. Punk, you better back up. Try and play the role and you're the whole crew will act up. Get up, stand up, come on, throw your hands up. If you got the feeling, jump up.
All right, good morning. I'm glad you're here today. It'd be awkward if you weren't. It's cool though. I'm excited. I guess. I mean, I'm always excited and nerves are high. I'm still not used to this, but it's cool. We have some very special people back with us today, so I want to give a warm welcome to Ma and Paul. We're so glad to have you back. It's awesome. They didn't abandon us. They're back. No, it's cool. We're glad to have you. Yeah. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about some things. How many of you can say that your life has turned out exactly the way you thought it would ever turn out? Nobody? Oh, okay, yeah, Jeremy. I knew Jeremy's life's perfect. Yeah. Here's a thought in my mind. My mind is weird. Everybody knows that. So here's a thought. If you could paint a picture, if you could describe your life in like a verbal picture, what would it look like? Would it look like an eagle launching into air and just the beautiful wingspan just like stretching out, and the power of each stroke just beauty, just soaring above everything, and does it look like that? No, okay. Mine looks like someone trying to ride a bicycle down a flight of stairs with, it has the pole for the seat, but no seat, and ice skates on, or flippers or something with oven mitts taped to his hand, and I don't know what, just seemingly completely out of control. There's no way this is going to turn out good. He has all the wrong tools. He has everything that he doesn't need to ride this bicycle down this flight of stairs that has twists and turns in it. It's not even straight. It sounds rough, huh? That's the worst. Not worse, but that's just how I picture. When I look back at how everything started for me, I think back of even starting in high school. I had it made in high school and I didn't even realize it. I didn't have bills to pay. I had a vehicle. I didn't have a kid to take care of or a wife to take care of. Well, I don't even have a wife now anymore to take care of. I got rid of that problem. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrible. I didn't mean that. She got rid of me. Wow. And I'm your pastor. I'm sorry. The only way I know to be is just real. So if that's all right with you, that's all I know. So, no, but anyway, that was a mutual deal there. But anyway, I didn't realize how easy I had it in high school, and I couldn't wait to get out. And as soon as I got out of high school, I moved to Dallas, and I went to work for Dr. Pepper, and I thought I had it made, but then I found out real quick I have to pay bills, and so I lived off of flour tortillas and cheese for 6 months, it seemed like, because that's all I could afford. You could go and get a big thing of tortillas for $1 or something, and cheese, a big bag of cheese, and I could just live off of that. And I had to live off of that because I had a truck payment and rent, I had everything else, and then all of a sudden, I let people get involved in my life that took me on this whole nother journey down this road of this other flight of stairs that and this when the bicycle and everything with no seat and everything just took place, it was a disaster. of a life. And sometimes I still question, what the heck is going on? Anybody else? Do you relate at all? Which picture do you think you relate to the most? Bicycle or the eagle? Bicycle, yeah. Because it seems like, and anybody else, like, does it seem like just when it starts to get better, here we go again? Yeah. Me too. And I think we give the enemy too much credit sometimes. Because how many of us have went through things or even deal with things now that is a result of decisions we made years ago? Yeah. A lot of mine are people that I allowed in my life, people that I allowed to control things in my life. And this isn't just for me, but God gave me this this week, and I want to share it because I don't think it's just for me. If something or someone is in control of your thoughts or your thought pattern, you're not seeking first the kingdom of God. If something or someone is controlling your thoughts or thought pattern, then you are not seeking first the will or the kingdom of God. And like, I want everybody to be happy. I try to make everybody happy. And a lot of times I have an I don't care personality, but I do care. And I love people, and I want to see people happy, and it hurts when I see people broken and people hurting. Like, it hurts, and like, I want to do something so bad, but I don't know what to do sometimes. But God gave me that because sometimes I even let that take me off course. Because I start thinking about people more than listening to God. Because God may be telling me to do something different, but I let my own actions and emotions control what I'm doing rather than me seeking what God is actually telling me to do. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Because sometimes somebody can be going through something, and I think sometimes we do a better job of getting in the way than actually helping. Because we have a heart, but are we actually following what God's word is to help this person, or are we following our own thoughts and emotions, and maybe because they said something this way or that way, we're trying to make them happy, but we're actually just getting in the way? I don't know. All right, so we'll get started here. Because I feel like I'm losing you already. See, sometimes things just don't turn out the way that we think. Sometimes we make a bigger mess than we do cleaning up. And we try to help and we try to do things, but are we really actually seeking God? And I feel like I'm kind of getting off track. So that's for somebody, and I don't know. We're going to be in John chapter 5, believe it or not. How many of you have this memorized by now? All right, one person. I'm glad. That's good. Hey, we're getting somewhere. No, we're going to be in John 5 today, and we're going to hit on a few things, and then we're going to move on. But I have something that I've been pondering for a few weeks now, and finally I just decided, well, I'm going to go with it because I don't know, but at the same time I can't get away from it. So we're going to talk about it and see what we come up with. Because this is how God works with my mind sometimes. It takes it on a journey that just It's just weird sometimes. But anyway, so we're going to read John chapter 5, and we're going to talk about this man that's been laying on this mat for 38 years, and Jesus heals him, and then breaks the law and tells him to pick up the mat and walk on the Sabbath. So anyway, you all know this. You can read it aloud with me if you want. If you don't, I'll just read it to you. Afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Inside the city, near the sheep gate, was the pool of Bethesda, with 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, the blind, the lame, or paralyzed, lay on the porches. One of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. Every time I read that, I think, man, God, that's a long time to have a bad day. When Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him, "Would you like to get well?" And of course, I've always said this guy just starts making excuses. "I can't, sir," the sick man said, "for I have no one to put me into the pool when the water bubbles up. Someone else always gets there ahead of me." But see, here's the thing. He wasn't making an excuse. See, I was wrong on this, and I've always been taught this wrong, I think. He was stating a fact. He wasn't making an excuse. I have no one. I'm just laying, and he was helpless. Like, he was laying there, didn't have anybody to help him. Like, and I always say, like, surely he could have, nudged himself, but, roll over. But if he couldn't move, right? I don't know. I wasn't there, so I couldn't actually see the situation. But, have you ever been in a situation where you're like, oh, my gosh, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything. And so, you take that even farther, he had been there for 38 years. 38 years. That's a long time to still have some hope of getting in this pool. Sometimes we don't make it through the day and we give up our hope. Jesus told him, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk." Instantly, the man was healed. And this is another thing. I've always thought the man was healed because he finally got up. He finally decided in his head that he's going to get up. No, I think he got up because Jesus, he was healed, so he got up. This is a story of grace. There's just no way that this is not a story of grace, because I don't want to get into it too far. 5 is supposed to be the number that represents grace. It's John chapter 5. There was 5 covered porches. Jesus was pierced 5 times. There's just a lot of 5 going on here. And I feel like because Jesus and his love and his grace walked up to this man that had been sick and just there for 38 years, he was able to give up. Okay. But this miracle happened on the Sabbath. So the Jewish leaders objected. They said to the man who was cured, "You can't work on the Sabbath. The law doesn't allow you to carry that sleeping mat." But we already got into all that. I got told, can't say crap in church anymore. Not anymore, but it got pointed out. Hey, you said crap in church. Now I've said it a bunch of times. It was holy crap, not just crap. Wow. That's right. But that's the thing. You see, we come to church, and people in church will point out the things you're doing wrong, but they won't even recognize how far you've come from getting up off that mat. It doesn't happen out there. It happens in here. The system, the church, has failed. Do we see it? See, here's one thing. When I got divorced, and I'm not knocking anybody, but when I went through everything with my marriage and it fell apart, you know who I had the most support from? You know who called and checked up on me the most? It wasn't my friends in the church. It was my friends outside the church. And that's kind of backwards. Like, I get it. I understand. Fight for your marriage and do what you can do. But I don't know that I would be your pastor right now if I had stayed in Louisiana. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not saying give up, but there came a point where I was broken, and it was either, the thought crossed my mind. There was a beer store right down the street, and I thought, I'll just go get the biggest case I can find, and I'll drink it in about 30 minutes, and everything will be fine until the next day. Or I could start searching and finding out what the heck's going on. And I got into a relationship with this Bible and with God that I had never actually had before. I thought I had, but I didn't realize the things that I had missed and the things that I was not doing that God was trying to show me. And I don't know, Stephen Furtick said this. He said sometimes God will remove someone from your life so that he can take you where he's actually trying to take you. I don't know exactly where that falls on certain things, but I don't know that my life would have ever actually grown, my spiritual life that is. I don't know if it would have grown the way that it grew over the past 2 years had I stayed the same. It's just a thought. It said to the man who was cured, "You can't work on the Sabbath. The law doesn't allow you to carry that sleeping mat." But he replied, "The man who healed me told me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" Who said such a thing as that? They demanded. The man didn't know, for Jesus had disappeared into the crowd. And here's the next part. Here's what we're going to get to today. This part, I didn't understand this part. I didn't understand it. And all of a sudden, a couple of weeks ago, something started screaming out at me. And I kept saying to myself, "No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense." And then all of a sudden, I got it, and I realized it makes perfect sense. How did I miss that? So here's the thing. Afterward, we're in John 5:14 right here. This is, if you don't get anything else, read this part. But afterwards, Jesus found him in the temple and told him, "Now you are well, so stop sinning, or something even worse may happen to you." Then the man went and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who healed him. Has anybody else been unsure about that part? He said, he found him in the temple and told him, "Now you are well, so stop sinning, for something even worse may happen to you." What was the guy doing? Huh? He was in the temple. What else? Was it what he was doing, or was it what he was not doing? And I started thinking about this, and every time I started reading this, there's this parable that kept popping up in my head. What does this parable have to do with anything that we're talking about? And it's in Matthew. It's in Matthew 25, verse 14. And this is, I'll just read it to you, or you can read along. It's a parable. This is the parable of the three servants. And I don't know why. I couldn't figure out why this kept popping up in my head. So again, the kingdom of heaven, this is Jesus here talking, okay? He's giving this parable, okay? It says, again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver. I invested it and have earned 5 more. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount. So now I'll give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Keep going. The servant who had received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more. The master said, Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount. Now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back. But the master replied, You wicked and lazy servant, if you knew I had harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit the money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Then he ordered, Take the money from this servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. For those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. How many of you have no idea what I'm talking about right now? It's okay if you don't, because the first time I read it, the first time I seen it, and the first time I heard it, I was like, that is ridiculous. That means nothing to me. How do the 2 stories relate? And then all of a sudden, God started showing me the things. Here's the thing. Why did Jesus tell him to pick up the mat? That was his testimony. That was his story. And we kind of discussed a little bit last week. I was chasing rabbit trails all over the place last week. But we have a story. Each and every one of us have a story. We have a testimony of the way God has touched us and how God has changed us, how God has loved us, how God has had grace on us and mercy and forgiveness. And we could pick up that mat, and it could be a testimony as we go throughout our day, out our life. Or we can take it and stick it in the closet or bury it in the ground and say, and just go on with life and do nothing with what God gave us. So you have a story for a reason. We all relate, but you have a specific thing in your life, a testimony of the way God touched you and the way God healed you and the way God said to, or Jesus said to get up off your mat. That's going to relate to someone else. That's going to encourage someone else. That's going to be the gospel to someone else. Do you see where I'm going here? Do you see it? How many times a day do we pass by someone and we refuse to have forgiveness? Or we refuse to give grace? Or we refuse to offer that love that was offered to us? Do you see that whole story about the whole parable it's about stewardship from my view. And we always teach it about money, but what about the love that we're entrusted with? What about the grace that we're entrusted with? What about the forgiveness that we're entrusted with? What about all those things? What if it's not that we're out hurting people and causing trouble? What if it's that we're just sitting back and not doing anything? What if it is that we claim Jesus did all this in our life, but we go to work and we cuss and we get ticked off and we attack just like everybody else does? Are we that guy just roaming around in the temple, not using what God gave him? That's what I started seeing. I started seeing the things in my life that I wasn't using and that I wasn't doing. You could just stuff it in the back, stuff it in the closet, or bury it and do nothing with it, right? This whole thing, this mat here. Like, there's plenty of people around the pool that probably could have used the mat, right? And see, and that's what we do. We think we can just start helping people one way, but are we actually seeking the way God is actually trying to use our life? See, we want to have our own will. We don't want to put our will in the same direction as God, as Jesus is trying to do here. See, Jesus is trying to point this guy in a direction. He healed him. This dude had been sick. He'd been an invalid, paralyzed, whatever, however you want to say it, for 38 years. And then all of a sudden he's walking? Do you see what I'm saying? Love your kids now, while you can, while you have them. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when they learn to do better. No, love them now and they will be better. Spend some time with them now and they will get better. Quit being so selfish and love your wife now. Love your husband now. Stop worrying about what you want and how you want it, because it's not always going to look like the way you think it should look. Jesus gives us love and grace and mercy, but we think we deserve it. But we are short to offer grace and mercy and love to our own kids, to our own husband, to our own wives. How are we using the love that we say we have? Are we even using it? Do you see what I mean? Do you see where I'm going? Things never look the way that we think they should look. And as soon as we start trying to shape things and make things in the way that we think they should look or feel or sound, the wheels are going to come off. And that bicycle ride down those stairs is going to hurt. I've never ridden a bicycle without no seat, but I would imagine it hurt. Do you see what I'm saying here? Do you see where I'm going? Does this only resonate with me? Because we try to put God in our will. We try to do things our way every day, and we'll say, no, I'm seeking God. I'm doing everything right. Yeah, we may be reading. We may be learning verses. We may be praying. But when we walk out the door, are we putting what God gave us, what Jesus healed us from, are we putting it to work? How many of you know someone who has an incredible ability of something? Maybe it's an art or drawing or just like a creative mind. Like, man, they could be making, computer programs to save the world. They could be, anybody know someone that has just this incredible ability with something? And they just kind of use it? That's frustrating to me. That's frustrating to me because, I know a few people that have this, it's like there's a certain area in their life, there's a certain thing that it clicks and it fires on all cylinders, and it is an extreme ability that could change the world, but they don't use it. They're like, I'd have to do this and I'd have to do that. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? How many of you know somebody, and they have it, but they're not passionate about it? That frustrates me. It frustrates me when we say we know what love is and we actually have no idea because we don't use it. We feel the love, but we don't give the love. We want forgiveness, but we don't want to give forgiveness. We want grace, we want mercy, but we don't want to give it. See, we got to learn how to be better stewards of Jesus. Because the whole time we think we're living a life like Jesus, we're actually living a life like the religious leaders. That we can only see the mat. We can only see what you did wrong last week. I can only see what you're doing wrong. But we forget that mat, sometimes life labels us as with this thing that we went through, but that's not it. Jesus doesn't see us like that. But we start thinking, we get a picture of somebody in our head and we can't get rid of it. We don't want to give them grace. We don't want to give them mercy. We don't want to give them love. They're that guy on the mat. He's the guy that was on the mat, but he's walking now. All I can see is the mat. I can't get my head around the fact that he's walking. He was on this mat laying down for 38 years and now he's walking. I see his testimony, I see his story, but I can't get past the fact that he's got the mat with him. I was an alcoholic. I'm not anymore. I loved to party. 9 o'clock rolls around now and I'm ready to go to bed. I'm not who I was because Jesus came in and touched my life and took it completely around and changed it and transformed it into something completely different. I have a story. I have a testimony. And when we face something, like we said last week, we can either lay back down on that mat or we could put it to work. We could put our testimony to work. We could put our story to work. A testimony is powerful. How many of you in here know someone that actually has a powerful testimony? Brandis Wilson? Yeah. Chance? That's a story too. We won't get into that. There's some things that are okay left unsaid. No, I'm just playing. No, but we have a story. And it's not just us. It's not just Brandis. It's not just Chris. It's not just Chance. Every one of us have a point in our life where Jesus has said, get up. You know it. You know it? You know it. Yeah. You know it. Right. Michael, you know it. There's people, this room is full of people that have a story. Now it's time to get up off the mat and start putting some things to work. Putting our love to work. Putting our forgiveness to work. Putting this grace to work. Some of us have a passion for kids and an ability to take care of kids that nobody else has. But instead of getting involved and putting that into action, we sit right here. We all have some type of ability. We all have a story. We all have something. Did my mic go off?
Yeah. Just keep going.
We all have something. We all have something that we can put to work that we're not using. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. I'm ready to get to work. I'm ready to get out into the community and start helping somebody. It's almost lawn mowing season. It's time we get together and we go mow somebody's yard that has a hard time getting out there, not because they're lazy, because they don't want to, because they can. It's time for us to start putting some things together and getting up and putting things to work, putting our abilities to work, putting our hearts to work, putting that story to work. You know what? Every time we meet someone, every time we encounter someone, it's an opportunity to share. We can either include or exclude. We don't have to go door to door inviting people to church. We go offer up some love, some help. Because God gifted you with an ability that He didn't give someone else for a reason. And He gifted you with the story that He didn't give someone else for a reason. Because you are going to relate and be able to pick somebody else up by the hand, by the arm, and say, come with me. Our stories have power. Our past has power. See, what we thought was holding us down is actually the very tool that God wants to use to speak to someone else. Amen. Are you with me? Yes. Come on. It's time to put some ability to work, right? I hope we get that. Where's the band? Let's play a song. It's time to get to work. Jeremy has an incredible ability. And I love hearing him play. I love being able to stand back here and pretend that I can play along with him. Wes has an ability. Everybody here has an ability. Oh, I just hope we get that. That's all I really have for you today. I hope we get that. We're going to move on. We're not going to talk about this man on the mat anymore for a few weeks at least. No, I'm just playing. But I want to get that. I want you to find today, this is what I want you to do. I want you to find something in your life, an area in your life that you know is supposed to be being used for the kingdom of God that's not being used. You can either lay on that mat or we can pick it up and carry it and further the kingdom of God. Wow. I know we changed the clock, but come on. I expect the band to start playing. See, it doesn't always work out in our mind the way we think. You can play whatever, it doesn't matter, just fiddle around or whatever. No, it's cool. No, So anyway, no lie. Everyone's still asleep. And that's all I had. My throat's so dry, it's burning. What can we do different? What can we change? What if we actually got out of the same routine? What if we broke down some walls? And maybe share something with someone that we know we should have been sharing with the whole time, but we didn't want to get out of that comfort zone. You realize the comfort zone is dangerous? It's a dangerous place to be. Because that comfort zone, it disables us more than it enables. It's hard to work inside of the comfort zone because so far in my life,